Welcome to Inspired Inc., the CWS podcast, a show where we promote indie comic creators and become inspired by what they create and their journey of creating it. I'm your host, Brandon Blocksdorf, and today on the show, we have Dominick and Lydia Monette, where we talk about finding meaningful lettering, how comics can expand fine art, and how trauma fuels stories. All of that and so much more on today's Inspired Inc. What got you guys into making art, and what was like your path to kind of that carved you into making comics at this point?
You want to start?
Sure. I've always been interested in art. I love visual things. I found that, just listening to the teachers and looking at anything, I could remember most anything without reading the chapters. Especially just imagining them telling the story would help me a lot. And one day, my mom brought up a portfolio from the basement and said that my father went to the special arts high school in Manhattan, and I was just like, me. I'm gonna be an artist. And I just always knew I wanted a creative career. So that's where I'm coming from. And then
Yeah. I mean, I've been drawing my whole life. I got my first comic probably when I was like 5 years old, and it was just a good way to escape from the environment and stuff like that. And I just started drawing shortly after I started collecting comics, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's so cool. You've kind of had a calling to it your entire lives. And it's such an interesting thing because I've talked to so many people, and myself included, who had like a different passion or a different focus before they discovered comics. What about comics like just encapsulated you guys so much at a young age to really just figure out that this is the way I want to make art, comics specifically?
That is a good question, and I'm not sure. And I'm not really sure what it is that just grabs me about it. Do you know? Because you're kind of new into
so
comics, right?
I'm technically new. I always wanted to be a fine artist.
Okay.
Fine artist. I did painting. I still paint, not as much, but I've kind of translated those skills into comics and trying to learn how to color like a cartoonist has been interesting, and I see a lot of growth there. What it sparked my interest in comics again was that this is a lifelong dream for him, and how cool would that be to build up a little comic empire. And it gives me direction. It's something that involves a lot of skills that we have and we've built up over the years, even down to the lettering aspect. I was in graphics for 6 years, and it was specifically vehicle graphics, and learning working with Illustrator. So I'm able to do my own TTF format type
Oh,
kits for
cool.
our comics because I worked with vectors and Illustrator before. So I don't know, just kind of everything's coming together. And I like I said, I've always wanted a creative career, so this definitely falls in line with that.
Yeah, I know. When I was growing up, we didn't have internet. I didn't have like a computer or a phone till I was in college. So just like comics were just kind of there, and and I didn't live near a comic shop, so it was like whatever ones I could get. Sometimes from a dollar store, you'd get like a pack of three Valiant comics that
Yeah.
mass produced or something. Uh, and then if you ever watched TV or got toys, like being a '90s kid, like comic books were like heavily pushed in the '90s, So
That's really cool. I feel like there's so much to unpack there too, because I never had really considered. We think about other careers we could do while making our art, and a lot of people do go in that graphic design route. But I had never really considered vector creating and just using font templates for like trucks and going into those type of industries to become a letterer. Because you're right, everything we see on the side of vehicles, everything we see on like taxi cabs, all that, those are just like various types of letterers doing that job. And I feel like that's the coolest, most pinnacle way to almost make yourself a very expressive and expansive letterer is just studying these different formats. I feel like that's why, a lot of your stuff really kind of stood out to me. And I was looking at the fonts and I was looking at some of the stuff you guys were doing. And I was like, this is really, it felt different from the start. None of it felt like just traditional lettering. None of it felt like, oh, this is like an entry level. I'm going to experiment because I like this font. It all seemed very well picked out. And it kind of threw me for a moment because early comics, people's first comics, sometimes that lettering doesn't really land. And it's something more people look over than anything else.
Right.
I feel like
And she even turned our handwriting into like a font you could type,
that's so
Yeah,
cool.
I was very specific about it because, like you said, it felt different. So when people write inverted, like the psychology behind writing, like I was just like, so few people like have that backward slant. So when I saw it in like some of his lettering, I like made sure everything like I retained that, and he didn't even recognize his lettering at the end. I was like, I made everything uniform, but
which is it's perfect because I can't always be trusted to do my best handwriting at all times. So it's like if she just gets my best lettering one time and then we just keep typing it, it's awesome.
it's a lot of fun. I find myself designing fonts now, like a typographer or something.
We even had a friend who passed away early, and we found some of her notes from high school and stuff, and she even made a font out of that.
Oh,
Mhm.
wow. That is probably the coolest thing I've ever heard. And like the most heartwarming thing I've heard to kind of just remember a friend and like keep them alive throughout the years and having their handwriting and comics and fonts. Sorry, my cat is just hanging out with us today.
That's perfect.
T'Challa's
We
just
have
going to
a
be
cat
chilling with
too.
us. It's just popping up. Every time I do podcasts, he's like, dude, I'm here. What's up? Um,
It's a
but
podcast.
that's so sweet. I feel like, I never heard of someone doing that for lettering. And I feel like you're about to give like a million people that idea and to run with it as well. I may even figure out how to do that sometime because it's so sweet. And if you're writing a story and it kind of comes on their handwriting, it's like they're speaking through it. And I feel like you've just changed the meaning of what it, like how deep it means to be a letterer. Like, in artistic sense, you can make a portrait, you could write a story about someone and base it off of something, but to use their handwriting and that's awesome. I can almost cry just hearing that. But that's so cool. Like I feel like letterers don't get enough recognition um in the sense of like how creative they really are. It's a very like tight knit art form and you have to really break it down and understand. And I feel like most people could look at a comic and determine it's a good or bad comic just by like the story or just by the art. But like I feel like very veteran, experienced comic book people will be like, you know what, this lettering box or this font doesn't work out. Like, and that's like when you're talking to someone who knows about comics because they're looking at the actual part you're reading. Um, and just like you were saying about your upbringing, I also got brought up on those like packs of comics that kind of came in a bundle. You know what I mean? And they're kind of random
Yeah.
stuff that like give you things that you've never really heard of as a kid. It wasn't typically just X-Men and like Spider-Man and whatnot. It was those weird Valiant ones. Or they'd give you weird Marvel books like X-Force. And as a kid, you don't know what those mean or Excalibur and all that.
Or Thor
So
Corpse or something.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like the one-offs that you're just like, this even Marvel? Like I've never heard of any of this, but it kind of opens you up. Do you guys read a lot of mainstream comics now, or are you guys mostly focused on your own work? Because I know that's also a transition from.
It depends. Like I'm a big fan of gimmicks. So, recently on the shelves they did Godzilla versus Justice League.
Mm.
That will get me. 9 times out of 10 though, Marvel and DC doesn't really get me anymore. Uh I don't know. I'm very picky on the art because once the cross hatching and stuff stopped and they started depending on the color artist to do like all the detail, I kind of fall out of it. Like I read mostly Image or any like underground company, but sometimes there are artists who slip through, like Raphael Grandpa,
Yeah,
who I feel like reinvented Batman.
dude, yeah, love his stuff.
Yeah, that kind of stuff will get me to the mainstream again, but it's rare.
Yeah, I just do back issues. If it's American comics, indie comics, Image, I prefer those over like the mainstream titles. One I'm looking for that I found recently is Faithless.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, Brian Azarayo and Maria Lovett. I don't know. I found that late, and I wish I'd found it sooner because I actually do remember when it was coming out. I think around 2016.
Yeah.
I noticed that on shelves. But I'm just looking for back issues of that now.
Oh, that's so
Before,
cool.
I would say like when I was, pre-adolescent, adolescent, I was more of a manga reader.
That's interesting. What attracted you so much to like manga instead of comics as you were coming up?
Probably watching Spirited Away. To
Oh,
be
rad.
honest, like all those Ghibli like movies are like ingrained in me as like a human. Like my double as far as like a literary character would have been like Sophie from Howl's Moving Castle.
That's
She's
awesome.
like, I'm better off an old lady anyways.
That's amazing. Yes, I love that
Yeah.
so much. That's so cool. And I mean, what's even more interesting is like you guys came together as a couple and started like working on art together. And that's like it's one of those dream things where you're just like you get to work with your partner and create a vision and see where it goes. And coming from a fine art background, like how was that transition for you? I feel like there's that fine art aspect where a lot of people don't realize how much of that goes into comic books. Like, do you feel like you felt more challenged when you approached comics?
Um, it's better for me personally. I don't know. When I was like in school, like there was always assignments and like a goal, and like I could just follow whatever my professors wanted. And then when it's like my own stuff, I really procrastinate because it's like, oh, what am I gonna, what do I choose? Where do I go? And like, if there's like a sequential story, I have everything laid out in front of me. I know what I'm doing all the time. The challenge is just like putting the work in. Like you don't have to like overthink everything, or maybe you still do, but at least there's a determined path.
That makes
Like,
sense. Yeah.
yeah, with Fennec, I definitely see myself getting faster, like as the chapters go through. Like right now I'm personally on chapter 4. Um, and like I just keep getting faster with the flats. Like the rendering and stuff is what takes me the longest because that's when I'm making decisions about like the lighting and texture. And so I try to make myself feel like I'm moving fast by like just doing a bunch of flats.
Ah, nice. And so for
Yeah.
like the audience who doesn't know, for like the writers and whatnot who are listening to us, tell us about flats for just a moment because I feel like you can explain
Uh,
it pretty well.
so some people call them the separators. Like you just sit there and like a puzzle piece, like you're selecting every object, every subject, every panel so
Hmm.
that it's like independently selectable. And then the final flats are like when like I have like a big page of like every single element separated and is the flat base color of what I want it to be in like the finished page. And then as far as like lighting and rendering is the layers that go on top that like determine texture, like where the light's coming from, and
Yeah,
really sets the tone
that
for the
kind of takes up
page.
most of the time, not the coloring, but like separating every item on the page, and yeah, it
Yeah.
takes up a lot of time.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, yeah. And that's why we pay the artist. That's why you pay your artists because it takes a lot more time than to go from your notebook just to the word processor app that you're using to type your script. Um, I mean, also like coming up as writing and making comics now, what do you guys feel like the challenge is, especially working so closely knit together? Because I know stories can turn really personal. I know stories can like draw from certain aspects of life and everything. Do you guys ever feel like there's like a conflict? Do you guys ever feel like it's hard to like really open up and express certain things, or does it just feel very natural for you guys to be open and like create these stories together?
That's the part we're learning. So like at first, we just I don't even remember what the process was in writing at first, but the more we started, because we had to teach ourselves how to write.
Hmm.
We watched all kinds of videos, did research on what the heck the hero's journey is and all that stuff. And the more we're learning, the more we're like, oh God, we have to be vulnerable and take our life experiences and put them into the story. But when we do that, the stories get juicy, and it feels rewarding to unpack trauma and stuff into our stories. And that's probably our most common theme is childhood trauma and how that affects the actions of a person in their life. And once we create a childhood trauma for our characters, it's all like a breeze from there. I feel like everything kind of fits together like a puzzle piece because you know what a damaged person does in a situation and what different types of damage people do in situations.
That's awesome. That's like, and that's the way you kind of make great stories is taking your experience and finding a way for it to resonate with other people and using those really kind of hardcore, like, traumatic, moments in life, how whatever that trauma may be defined as from like heartbreak to, death to just, life experience of some sort of situation. That's the way you kind of get like a real impactful story, I feel. And comics are fun and comics are meant to be fun, but like if you're able to get that humanistic hook on someone, that's how you're going to really draw more and more people in. And how long have you guys been working on comics as a team now together?
Well, so we've been together since high school, and so we've
That's
known each
awesome.
other for like 15 years. We've been dating for like 13 years. We've always done art together, but like taking it seriously and teaming up to do it, probably like 5, maybe.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the first issue of Trashberg.
Yeah, Trashberg is an anthology from Plattsburgh, New York, where we're from, and that's where we started doing comics together. It's maybe like
Yeah,
5 or 6 years ago, and we've been working well doing that because before doing comics together, we also did like video production and music and all kinds of other stuff. So
Oh
yeah.
wow. Tell me a little bit about that. What's your musical background as well?
Well, we're both self-taught musicians, but we can play electric guitar and bass and keyboard, and recently learned how to play a uke. And we used to just write songs all the time. We were emo kids, and
singer-songwriters.
yeah.
Nice. What are some of your favorite? You're just, like right up my alley now. You just hit all the check marks. What are some of your like favorite like emo bands and stuff like that too?
Well, I mean, my chem was mine, and then of course Taking Back Sunday. I love them a lot. Those are my top two.
Yeah, emo bands. I listen to Hawthorne Heights a lot.
Yes.
But yeah,
Dude, that's all my stuff. Like I'm a huge My Chem fan. Gerard Way is a big influence on me. Taking Back's one of those bands where I've seen them recently and I was like, yeah, it's Taking Back. I'm kind of excited. And then you're singing the entire time through and just your heart's coming. Yeah. Those are and Hawthorne too. If that pops up on a shuffle, you're just like, I want to skip it, and then you're like, "Nah, I can't skip this. It's too good." Like it's just cool.
anything Aiden or Silverstein
Dude,
that comes on.
Aiden.
Yeah,
I forgot
Aiden,
about them. Oh my gosh. Yes. That is awesome. Dude, that was all my like high school Warp Tour days and, early like punk band days and all that type of stuff. I grew up as a musician as well. Like I play bass and I studied bass for a number of years before I switched to making comics. And I feel like I've kind of retired from music, but I admire every person that does art and music at the same time because it's such a hard balance. How do you guys kind of navigate various creative endeavors, comics, life, relationship, music, because I know I try to do the same thing and I know the struggle. So what's your guys's kind of recipe for success there?
that's the definitely the question. We used to try to balance all of it, but we realized that you can't be very good at one of them if you have to balance it all. So our music and video production has suffered because we don't really do that much anymore. Like it's pushed to the side. We still play music on occasion, but we don't like go out and perform. We don't try to start a band or anything anymore. But we just focused on comics, and once we focused on comics, our skills are like just so incredible. I still like blow my own mind. I'm like, I can't believe I'm drawing this. I wish I could have shown 5-year-old me this and was like, don't be so sad. You're going to draw this, like it's crazy what we can do when you focus on one thing. If we had just focused on music or just focused on video, I'd probably be just as impressed. You have to focus on one thing, whether you like it or not. It's sad, but
That's crazy how true that is. And I feel like that's why I've backed off of music so much because I remember playing, I'll send you guys maybe my old band from back in the day after we finish this call and all that. But I was like really getting into like progressive experimental like metal, like Between the Buried and Me and stuff like that. So really shreddy bass, and I was learning various, types of genres of music to try to be the best bassist I could be. And I was like a little 18-year-old with like a big old 6-string bongo bass and all that, like with an 8x10 and all that. So it was kind of a cool like time in my life for sure. But I realized like once I set it down, it was like I really wish I could do both of these, but it just feels like impossible. It's exactly what you said. You have to focus on one thing, and whether it be writing, whether it be drawing. I think that's why a lot of creators went from, I could either draw this or, I have to quit and just focus on being a writer. And for those, awesome enough like you guys have the artistic talent. And I believe everybody has artistic talent to like make comics. You just have to, like you said, focus and do it. But it's so cool that you guys also realize that, you had to choose one and you made that choice and you're happy with that choice. But I feel
Yeah,
like all
and
of
I
us are
think
heartbroken.
there's more room in like the art world because like I know there's definitely people like us, we would go to dive bars and watch a band that's like okay, you know what I mean? But if you're and just an okay musician, there's not as much money for you as like an okay artist, because like in the art world, like whether you're just an all right artist or really good, like there's people who like all kinds of art. Sometimes
Hmm.
the art I put like the least effort in, people end up liking more, and I'm just like, what? But
That's it.
yeah, no matter what stage you are in art, I feel like there's room for you, and there's people who like that kind of art.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%. And I followed the Life on Saturn page for such a long time now. I know we've interacted a few times in the past, and I've kind of admired a lot of your work. I believe you submitted something to the Punk Anthology, and I was really mind blown by it, and we interacted about
Yeah,
that too.
Hunter Duck.
Yes, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. And I believe it was something about putting it to volume 2 and whatnot. But I remember seeing your art and it just like blew me away. And so it's really exciting to finally actually interact and like talk to people who I've seen their art but not gotten to spoken to before. And how is that like navigating your life to promote your art? What do you guys find that's the hardest part to get it out there and facing, you guys as submission unfortunately didn't make it in the Punk Anthology, like in the first round, and the first volume, I mean. But how do you guys handle that? How do you guys handle that like process of promoting, of rejection, of taking on new attempts, and trying and trying again? What keeps you going?
I mean, like anyone else, we just reach out and keep grabbing for things. So right now we're still focusing on finishing up Fennec, and I can't really book like a lot of cons, but I look for smaller things, like because we like being in person with people. We could do better at like the marketing in like the social media aspect, but that also takes time, and the platforms always change how they work. I remember when Instagram first started, like I could put out like a doodle and it would get like 900 likes.
Yeah,
Now I get like 20.
yeah, honestly.
Yeah, social media is tough. I mean, I used to have almost 20K followers on my Instagram about like 5 years ago, and now it's at like 13.2. It's just, social media is a job, and it's like we don't have. If you're an artist, you don't have time to do social media as well. It's just that's crazy, and just meeting like the right people, like you guys and Lesser
Oh
Known
yeah.
Comics and stuff like that. It's making the right decisions.
Getting
And
involved with other artist groups so that you like have some presence, like even when you're not like actively reaching out to communities, like you create like this was a community that we got lucky enough to find and be a part of. I look for, like I said, for smaller events. Like we set up at a flea market in Woodstock sometimes, like
Cool.
during the summer, spring season. This was our first time doing that, and that was nice.
yeah, think out of the box when you're tabling. Like you don't always have to table at a Comic Con. In fact, you're probably going to lose money because you have to pay a bunch,
$500.
500 to table there, and you may or may not make the money back on top of profit. It's a nightmare if you're like an artist, and so you try to find smaller events, even flea markets. Like we did, like you said, the Woodstock flea market, which was cool because there's tons of different types of artists there, different types of people who make different things, and we were the only comic artist there, so we held that market. But stuff like that.
Our local comic shop is really supportive. They let us table there for free.
Nice.
It
is
buy
harder
up
than you
our
think to
books.
find comic shops that are supportive, like to get books on the shelves. We've found a constant struggle with that. So we got one local shop in Yonkers, New York, the Spider's Web, and they are very nice people. They've always been.
Dude, that's awesome. I totally agree with you. I feel like, there's a lot to unpack there too. Like, comic shops for one, local ones especially, like it's kind of a battle to get support for indie stuff, in general most of the time. But then even like getting a table there or promote your book there, like in like a physical appearance, that even seems to be a struggle with a lot of shops. And I don't understand why for the most part, because it's like you're trying to draw in more local attention and you're trying to draw in more local people just to come to a comic book shop. So why not present these local artists and like put them forward? I'm very fortunate for Four Color Fantasies here in Winchester, Virginia. They're very supportive. And if you guys ever like, maybe we could set up something one day if you guys ever come down. It's like a 4-hour drive, but they set things up and they have a really great event. I was just there not too long ago tabling for a Halloween event. And for my first solo time, it was pretty successful, So finding shops like that like want to boost the community, rare, but those who do, I feel like are very enriching and very beneficial just to help you guys out.
Yeah, which is crazy because all the books on the shelf, I mean, they were all underground artists at one point.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. What are your guys' like ultimate goal as creators? Like, speaking of starting off as, someone on the shelf as an indie artist to getting to something, do you guys like aspire to get to a bigger type of publisher, or do you guys really want just create your own
we
work?
Want enough of a fan base to like to keep us going and keep paying for us to make comics, really. I mean, that's
pretty much it.
Yeah.
To keep supporting our habit.
That's great. I mean, that's one of the best ways of defining success is just like, you're not trying to make it rich and hit the gold superstar, rock star level, but you just want to be able to live off your work. And that's just like an honest way to be an artist, just like if I could just make this and make people happy and be happy myself, the dream. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like fame has definitely lost its appeal to these newer generations, and I totally get it. Like I love that there's this new band called Sleep Token, and every member of the band is anonymous.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I think that reflects upon fame in today. It's like I just want enough of a fan base. I don't like strive for like fame or anything.
That's cool. I just saw them recently. That was super insane to like even see Sleep Token. Great band too. If you guys haven't, watchers, listeners, go check that stuff out. Really interesting stuff. It sounds like we have a lot of musical taste in common too. So we'll talk sometime about music. 100%. I'm actually just to like brag, and Alex can edit this if he wants, but I got tickets for the new Blink show for next year, and I'm so hyped, dude. That new album is so good, and everyone's sick of me listening to it, but I love the new Blink album. Have you guys checked it out yet?
Not yet. No, I didn't know Blink had a new album.
No, I haven't.
That's awesome.
Check out the new Blink album. It'll make your whole day, I promise you.
We will. Damn.
But to comics and everything. What are you guys? Oh, you guys have done 4 books together. I know you mentioned you're working on book 4 right now. Do you have previous work besides the current series you guys are doing together as well?
Yeah. So I mean, we have Trashbergs. Mm-hmm. We have some stories out in there. That would be our earliest work if you want to see us at our Jankies.
Our bibliography is almost exclusively anthology. It's that's the best way still to get your work out there. It's just be a part of as many anthologies as possible. But
physical evidence of being part of artist groups.
True.
Our anthology was the first thing that we put together ourselves, and still it was an anthology, but like we just did all the stories in it with different writers.
We drew and colored every story, and friends of ours wrote each story. We'll be working on a second book to that next year, but we have the Trashberg anthology, Tales from the Dispatch. We're part of a couple of Discord groups like the Comics Accountability Club. We work on their anthology with them. And then, of course, we have our own books like Fennec, which is a tokusatsu. It's like I'm a big fan of Power Rangers and Kamen Rider and Godzilla. So it's like I've always wanted to make my own type of story like that. and
And it appeals to me, who wasn't a fan of too many of those things, but it has like a lot of psychological themes that I love. It's
childhood traumas, the theme of Fennec.
There you go.
It's the secret behind their powers and the metaphor behind the story. We have Hunter Duck, which is like a Blade Runner / Howard the Duck kind of crossover.
Another one of those, like, the more personal you get, the more interesting it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And I know we have more. I just can't think. Oh, there's Yamaneko. That's our online comic that we'll probably print in the future. You can get it on our website, lifeonsaturnart.com. We upload it there for free. And
we're in the planning stages of our first children's book right now.
Cool.
Yeah, sometimes you have to cave. Like, we're not really into. Sometimes we're not really into making kids stories, but we do have one idea that we'll just do, because like when you're tabling, no matter where you go, especially if it's not at a comic convention, that's the trade-off. You have to like open your mind to where you table if you want to make as much money as you can. But a lot of times you'll be tabling where people may not get comics, and they still think it's like a children's media. It's like, might as well get some friggin' children's books out there, right?
It's really interesting though, because I made a children's book in college where I had to like write it and draw it for all on my own, and it was one of my first attempts of drawing, which wasn't that great. I'm so proud. I would totally redraw that whole book now if I could. But doing a children's book is so difficult because how we kind of think as adults and the type of stuff we've been creating, and then having to like really not only simplify it to like a very extreme level, that is really difficult as a writer. And even as an artist to have like, I know paneling is, very detailed, and, paneling is very specific, but I feel like children's book paneling, you have to, again, be so simplified and very specific to like shapes and colors and that navigation and how the story is told with those colors and, the specific type of shapes to keep your eye attracted to it and to follow that story. What are the challenges that you're starting to realize going down that medium?
Well, we're going to do mixed media because
cool.
Another thing that we do when we're tabling is I have like my felt creatures, my felt babies that I sculpt. And that usually gets a lot of people's attention.
Yeah, if we don't sell anything else, we definitely sell her little felt dolls. So
like
for our kids story, we're gonna like try to incorporate her felt characters into the comic. So like, we'll draw some of the comic, but we'll also like maybe build dioramas and put her felt creatures as a character in the comic and edit it together on like Photoshop and I don't know, maybe that'll do something.
Kind of like Gumball.
Yeah.
Oh,
where it's
nice.
like mixed media.
That's exciting. That reminds me of like Dave McKean and how he did those like Sandman covers and made the actual stuff to and then turned it into stories and everything.
Yeah.
I love that.
I feel like the biggest challenge is going to be in the writing, like editing myself. That's the main reason I don't like doing kids stories, because I'm like, oh god, I have to edit myself. Like.
Oh yeah, another title we didn't mention that we're really proud of is we worked with a writer professionally for the first time at the beginning of the year, Mana Kingdoms. Like,
cool.
That was our biggest take on.
Yeah, shout out to Mark Bridge.
Bridge.
He was the first person to commission us to draw a comic, so that's awesome.
That's so exciting. I bet that's really cool as an artist, finally getting that chance to actually get recognized and brought forward by other creators too to do work. Do you guys find it like different, more challenging to write to someone else's work than versus your own?
Yeah, because like someone else, can dictate, what you're drawing and stuff, and you can't always put. But I mean, for the most part, Mark's been pretty open-minded. He likes my style, which is why he came to us to begin with. But yeah, I mean, I not necessarily like with comics, but we've had plenty of other kind of commissions and stuff. And whenever someone else is the boss, it's like they always like want something that is not always your style or something. Like my least favorite commissions are people who want a tattoo.
Oh yeah, I'm sure at that point too.
Oh yeah, but this is Mana Kingdom's Mark Bridges' story.
Ah, that's so
Um,
beautiful.
yeah, so he wanted like a '90s X-Men style, and I feel like that's what we went for with this story here. Um, and then this would be Fennec, our tokusatsu type story.
Epic. Oh man, that issue 2 cover is mind blowing. Gosh, I can't wait to check
Oh,
these out.
yeah.
Awesome, dude. That's sick. S-
Yeah.
Oh
What
yeah,
was
and
it
then
like for you guys to like, as you show us the covers and everything, to like just get your book in your hands for the first time and hold your work? Like, does that like first feeling moment ever fade with any issue, or like, are you always just stunned? Like, what's it like for you guys having so many books out?
it definitely feels getting the book for the first time feels more of an accomplishment than actually selling the book. It's like, whoa, it's a real thing now. It's like, especially like we're still the physical items generation. We buy DVDs and CDs, so
Yeah.
it's like, oh, physical, the comic, hell yeah, it feels more real.
This is the font we were talking about earlier, our friend's handwriting.
Oh
Yeah,
my
this
gosh, that's
this
so
this is our
cool.
friend who passed away, and then this is something that she wrote to us, and or a lyric she wrote in high school.
And this is our first book that we did ourselves, Rings of Saturn. And we did like I'm nostalgic for things like this. So it's like the back of the cereal box, or like, where they
Oh, I
have like
Yeah.
the
love that.
like everybody numbered, like it's the
So,
different
so
creators.
this is Lid and I here, and then these are all our friends who wrote in the story.
That is
Yeah.
sick. Gosh, it's so exciting. How cool.
But his last question was, how do you feel about
Oh
being
my
employed by
gosh.
someone like the process?
The process of being, well, that was hilarious. So first time writers and everything, you got to make sure you got your Bible together, because it's like inadvertently the most diverse character cast, like where everybody's like related. So I'm also like, we had to do like kind of like word problems. It's like, well, if the mother's black and the grandfather's white, that means
Right.
Just to
He
balance
gave,
tones and like facial structures. That's so crazy. You guys went that deep in that. That's
if they don't tell us what to do, like we automatically put people of color in there, like, and so like everybody was like a different race, and then like you find out, oh no, this person's that person's father. It's like, oh, that means the girls are like quarter Asian, quarter this, quarter that.
so it's like so yeah, that was the struggles when working on Mana Kingdoms, because like the queen is the villain. He wanted her to be a black woman, and then he just left it up to me when he told me who the team was, that is like the X-Men kind of team that forms together. And I kind of draw things I've never seen before, so I'm like, okay, so the two leaders are twins, I'll make them two Japanese girls. It's like I haven't really seen that before. And then I find out later, I'm like, oh, they're the daughters of the queen. Like, you gotta tell me that
okay.
stuff.
That's all.
But we figured it out. We did.
Yeah,
That's
those.
part of like creating a story and working on that story Bible is that as you come up with ideas, it's crazy how much, once you're starting to write it and work on stuff that you're like, oh, I have this, how it can all connect. And then you make last minute connections, like family connections without realizing it. But like, as fun as that is, but how challenging that is for the artist to keep up with that and to make those edits. So like writers out there, like know your story, when you pitch it to your artist so that you could get those fine details down. I think I've encountered that a lot where I've kind of decided to write a whole overview, very detailed, almost beat by beat type of thing. So I know exactly where it's going. So changes like that don't throw off me or the artist, or you reveal stuff in like the character outlines right away. Cause I feel like nothing should surprise the artist once they get the script. It should surprise them in the outline when they read it for the first time before they start the project. That's when all
Right.
the shocks and oh my gosh, revelations are happening. And so that way, when you have the script, you're like, I'm ready for this moment. This is going to be like prepped and prepared for. And you could also like leave in little things at the beginning of a story to trail back to later on. And I think that's what's really fun about story and craft is that you could drop a detail in issue 1 or 2, and then it really pays off on 5 or 6. Also, one of my last questions for you guys, you've done so many books together, and you're working on like longer and longer series. Do you feel like it's harder to keep up the grind as you progress through a series versus just doing a one shot or anthology or starting in issue one? Like, does it get more difficult as you progress, or do you feel like more fluid and excited as you go?
I think it's always hard to keep going. Like, to be honest, I should have been done the editing process and everything a lot sooner for Rings of Saturn, but life stuff happens. And you gotta deal with that, and that comes with more challenges. So
Yeah,
it never gets easier, that's for sure.
you were asking about goals of the future. I think one of my goals in the future is to get popular enough to where I can pay artists to draw for me, because I have way too many story ideas than I have time on this earth to draw them. It takes too long to draw. I can easily see how like AI could be a tool for artists in the future as opposed to replacing them. Because like, God, it's like it takes forever. It just takes up so much time in your life. I put my face down on the paper, and by the time I lift it up, it's like dark outside, and I lost a day, and I've had like one meal, and I'm like, it's like, oh, I only did one 11 by 17. I'm like,
Yeah. Yes.
I don't know. It's like it's tough. It's tough. I definitely wish I could draw faster. Sometimes I think about streamlining my style, but I don't know.
It's interesting what you said about AI right now too, because it's such a controversial thing at the moment. And when AI was kind of having all that controversy really hit social media and the internet, I had even posted stuff where anti AI and things like that, and go for your real artist and everything. And I had somebody that submitted a story to the Punk anthology, and they reached out and they were like, "Hey, we used AI." In our story, but we used it for the coloring to add an effect. And it made me really kind of take a step back and think and be like, you know what? I feel personally like if you're using AI as like a tool, as a guitarist would use like a phaser or like a chorus pedal or a delay or something like that, I feel like using it as a pedal and as a tool is
Yeah,
worth it, but
I
not
like
like,
that. I like that.
yeah, like how do you guys feel about that and that whole aspect of AI and what it's
Yeah,
turned into?
I think it's bad when you like submit AI and you put no other work and the AI did all the work for you. That's when AI is completely the final uh uh like that's when it's bad. But if it's used as a tool, like I can easily see where that's going to happen, because they thought, back in the day, they thought that photography was going to replace painters, and it didn't. It just became a tool. That's
Yep.
just we will evolve. And art will look different, and when you're not used to change, it's going to hurt. But I don't think it's going to replace us. It's just going to be another tool for sure.
I love
You
that.
know.
That's very true. I never thought about that photography aspect too. You're absolutely right. Everyone thought that was the end, and obviously, as to a fine artist turning into comics, and as just like a creator growing up and drawing and doing things, it's not going to go anywhere. And photography is a different craft in itself. And finding that moment, that shot, and everything. So we'll see what that turns into.
Yeah, and at the same time, I really wish AI would be used to. Sometimes it is still scary. I could see, because like it's like, why isn't AI taking jobs that suck? Like, why are they only taking jobs that make life worth it?
Yes.
Like, yeah,
Oh, for real, is honestly like that's another big thing where it's just like we should try to invent things to take care of these like almost meaningless tasks versus like the things that we care about the most. And storytelling and creating art and film and comics, like that's what we want to be doing. And give us the tools, but don't like have it take over everything. That's where we're making the mistakes.
yeah. Maybe it'll just divide the audience members more, because I mean, there will be people who look for AI art like it's their thing, and then there's people like, I know, like one of the reasons I don't like Marvel and DC is because I prefer more flawed hand drawn art. I need to see the human element. That's stuff that like Image or somebody will give me way before Marvel will.
You are totally right on that, and I'll be one of the first to say, like, when I started this whole comic book endeavor, I was always very discouraged about drawing, and I was always very intimidated by putting like pen to the page and everything, and drawing something out. Because when I was a kid, like I was told, oh, you shouldn't trace and blah blah blah, and I just stopped because I was like, I can't do this then. And as I like really looked at comic book art and I wanted to make comics, I would look at DC and Marvel because that's what I was reading. And you look at the Jason Fah books and the Tony Daniel and the Jim Lees and that kind of cookie cutter perfectionist thing. That's where I kind of think where fine art kind of mixes with comic book, because the skill and precision, I feel like we are getting some of the best skilled like artists these days than ever that aren't recognized enough to be for their skill sets. But also like it was so intimidating to me because I was like, I'll never be Jim Lee, I'll never be Tony Daniels, and it just made me kind of want to stop. And it wasn't until I started looking at indie books that I felt more confident. And that's when last year I started that drawing show, that live one, and then I did Inktober. And I tried doing Inktober again this year because it's been a while since I've drawn. Life got busy. But going back to it, I felt more confident again because I've been interacting with so many indie artists the past year and seeing so many styles and looking at so many friends' books and being like, hey, I don't need to be this absolute perfectionist when it comes to my work. I just need to work and get it done and get it out there. And that in itself is worth it. How was it for you guys putting your work out there? I know you've been doing it for a while, and especially coming from school assignments, it kind of helps you break that fear. But do you ever still get nervous about putting out your art? Like, do you still get scared or intimidated?
Yeah, because we're still not entirely sure what our demographic is. I mean, we're trying to keep up with like the modern art, but even though we still do things practically or hand drawn and stuff. But yeah, what do you think?
Oh, yeah, I ditto on the demographic stuff, getting it out there. Well, I mean, honestly, as like introverts and people who moved around a lot in life, we don't have large social networks physically anywhere we've been. So, like, when we write, it's personal, like the more vulnerable, like closer to your heart stuff comes out. And it's like when you feel like you're writing in a vacuum, it doesn't feel like there's going to be like a lot of people out there. So like, and that's also hard when you have to put on your marketing hat because like there's no background in business or marketing. So it's like, I don't know if anyone wants to hear this, but here we go. Like we
Yeah.
can't like approach anybody like that. So it's hard to know. That's part of the reason why like we go to like these smaller events and then like we had a talk with Mark the other day. It was just like, I don't know what to do. Like, how do you promote yourself?
We
Yes.
have a large setup because we invested in all kinds of stuff. So we we have tons of books on the shelf, but we also make our own zines. We make our own buttons and stickers and like all kinds of stuff. And whenever we table, our setup is pretty huge. And like younger demographics will see us and they'll be like, "Oh wow, you guys look so professional," and then they keep walking. Or
Yeah.
people our own age think they're like, "Wait, you guys do all of this? You do like which one is you?" It's like, "No, we do all of this." And then like, or people who are older will just be like, "Wow, some people have all the talent and we just get to look at it." And then they keep
Yeah.
walking. It's like, yeah, I don't know what the that's supposed to mean. Like
I know
I
completely what
hate
you're
the
saying there.
sales.
I mean, yeah, it's so hard because it's like, people want to support and you want to get that support. And I understand some people, it's hard because people don't go into conventions thinking about indie comics a lot. Or you have that crowd of just being like, oh, you guys have all the talent, and it's not here. But it's like it's only so much of it is talent, and the rest of it was just pure hard work and dedication and time and sacrifices. I mean, I mean, just being in relationships and been in a few relationships, I can only imagine what it's like trying to have a relationship but still be like, I need to get this page done. Like, I'm sorry, like I can't go with the family. You know what I mean? Like, I need to work on this. I
Yes,
don't know.
there's a lot of tears in the ink of the page.
Yes. And people don't realize that. They think you just pick up a pencil and you're like, "Oh, I can just whisk away and here it is." But it's a lot of work and it's a lot of strife and a lot of inner struggle and battles. And I think you guys have been doing just such a great job. And the fact that you just keep on producing work that you break through all of the triumphs you guys have probably gone through, from education, I'm sure, from family, from just like the region you're in, and social media. Social media is a battle in itself. Like, if you're a
Mhm.
creator, it is like it's like high school for like ever. You know what I mean? You're just trying to break in and get like with the crowd so that you could get some attention to your stuff, and it's insane. And you guys are still doing it, and you're not giving up. It doesn't sound like you're going to give up anytime soon either. Um,
No, I mean, it's sometimes you get caught up in the now, but every once in a while we take a look at our accomplishments, and it's like, holy crap, we did a lot in 5 years. The conversations we had in the last 5 years, like the people I never thought I'd talk to, like that we've talked to, and even the opportunities that have come and gone and missed opportunities. The fact that we almost had that chance or something, I was like,
mhm.
holy crap, you know. But yeah,
That's awesome. And I'm excited to see where you guys go from here. And as we wrap up the conversation, let us know what you have coming up for 2024, what maybe your plans might be, and where we could find you. We'll have a bunch of links at the bottom, but go ahead and give a shout out to your socials and anywhere else we could find your work.
all right. So next year we hope to have Fennec chapters 1 through 5 as a big book. Mana Kingdoms book 2 and 3 should be out next year. Hopefully more Hunter Duck.
Yeah.
And
Shout out to Mark Obridge on Instagram for Mana Kingdoms.
The writer and creator of Mana Kingdoms. But on Instagram, we are Life on Saturn Productions, and there's probably plenty of titles we don't know are going to come out too.
I love it. Thank you guys so much for your time here today. This was an absolute blast of a conversation. And I
Same.
really hope we get you guys on again pretty soon, because there's so many things we didn't even get to unpack, like diversity on your table
Mhm.
and how that's beneficial, all sorts of things.
And I'm not used to being this far south, so a trip to Virginia would be lovely.
Yes,
It's super close for us.
yeah, I would love to organize that. We would definitely, even if we table somewhere together,
Yes.
or just figure something out, that would be absolutely exciting. But thank you guys for your time, and we'll definitely keep you guys posted. Thanks for hanging.